For those of you who don't know me, my name's Allan. I'm part of the leadership team here at Embrace, and I'm going to be speaking to you tonight in the second part of our series called Church Without Walls. Paul Saxton, who's not here tonight, kicked us off last week. He did a good job. Okay, I'll tell you a little story. There was a pastor and a taxi driver were lining up to go into heaven. Okay? Just a joke, don't panic. It's not. Just a joke. So the taxi driver stood there, and the pastor is just behind him. And the door opens, and the taxi driver walks in. And Jesus high-fives him, because I'm sure that's how it is. The angels are like going, yeah, welcome, welcome. The big band's playing. And they put this huge gold crown on the taxi driver's head. And the pastor's thinking, wow, like I know that taxi driver, he's a bit of a dodgy guy. Even when he's got passengers, he kind of speaks a bit. Hardly ever see him at church. If he gets all of that, like what am I going to get? The pastor's thinking, wow. So then it's the pastor's turn, and like Jesus hardly like recognises him, says, yeah, come through. The angel's just like, oh hi, no big deal, no big fanfare. Gets like a little wooden crown. And the pastor's really not happy with this. In fact, being British, he determines to write a strongly worded letter to Jesus. So he says, I know I don't want to get off to a bad start in heaven, but like, how come the taxi driver got this great big fanfare, gold crown, big celebration? I got like barely nothing. And Jesus said, well, when he was driving, his customers were praying. But when you were preaching, your customers were sleeping. So no sleeping, right? I want to cheat. No sleeping. Okay. I just felt God say this while we were worshipping, particularly thing to do with healing. And I just really want this to sink in. So it's not really part of the talk yet, but I just felt God say this. For those people who don't believe in me, he said, if I heal someone tonight, will you choose to follow me? So if you don't believe in him, if you don't believe in God, I believe he's challenging you. I believe he's saying to you, if I do something miraculous tonight, will you follow me? And actually I believe he's saying to those who do follow him, who already follow him, and if I choose not to do something miraculous tonight, will you follow me? Will you still follow me? I'm just going to leave that with you. So tonight's title is Jesus Calls His First Disciples. So this is a story that happened in real life about 2,000 miles away and about 2,000 years ago. But throughout the story, we're going to make it relevant to Darlington, to us right now, where we live in the 21st century. Otherwise, what's the point? Okay? And at the end, I'm going to give you an opportunity to become a disciple of Jesus, if you're not already. And by a disciple of Jesus, we just mean a follower of Jesus. So if you're sat here now thinking, I don't know if I'm a follower of Jesus, or maybe you do know, you're definitely not, I'm going to give you the opportunity to become one tonight. Now, I'm going to start reading from Mark 1, okay, which is a book in the Bible, in the New Testament, and it's one of the books we call a gospel, okay, so there are 4 gospels, and the gospels are just basically 4 people's versions of Jesus' life, Jesus' death, and Jesus' resurrection, okay, and gospel means good news, because Jesus was good news. Jesus brought good news, and the 4 gospels, you've probably heard of them, are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And Mark was actually the first one to be written. We think it must be Matthew first, but in terms of time order, Mark was actually written first. The Bible puts them in a different order for reasons which I won't go into right now. And the reason I'm going to read from Mark first is much of this series is based in the book of Mark. So I'm going to read that, and then I'm going to move on from that, and I will explain why. If all of this is a bit new to you, a bit strange, it doesn't matter, don't worry, we'll just keep explaining as we go along. So this is what it says, Mark. As Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come, follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. At once they left their nets and followed him. When he had gone a little farther, he saw James, son of Zebedee, that's just a great name right there, and his brother John in the boat, preparing their nets. Without delay he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men and followed him. Now, you might notice that's in Mark chapter 1, so that's very early on in Mark's account of what happened. And the reason I'm going to stray away from Mark's version of events is not because it's not accurate, it is, but I just want to put some more context to what happened there. And you can find more context in Luke's version, alright? And that's not a surprise that the Bible was written by human authors with their own character and their own personality, but all of it inspired by God. There's nothing in the Bible that God doesn't want to be in there, and there's nothing not in there that God did want to be in there, if you can follow that. Okay, so I'm going to go to Luke. Now, Luke was a doctor at those times. He was a very thorough person, okay? He was a very detailed person, and his account of what happened just reflects that personality, that detail. And in fact, Luke tells us that when he wrote this, he wanted to give a very accurate historical event. Mark was actually much more of an action kind of guy. He just tended to put in the things Jesus did. So in Mark's Gospel, in Mark's good news account, you don't find many of the teachings of Jesus, you just find the stuff he did. That obviously was what appealed to Mark. Mark's kind of like a bullet point, main point of action. Luke's a little bit more detailed. So, the story read in Mark, actually before that happened, which Mark didn't record, Jesus had already been around doing quite a lot of significant healings. A buzz was starting to arise around the area in Jerusalem and around there about his healings and about who this guy was and even some of his teaching. And probably the people involved in the story will have already heard of Jesus and who's this guy starting to do these pretty incredible things. So it's in that context we're now going to read Luke. And even in Luke's version, there's more detail to this exact story. In fact, Luke took up 2 PowerPoint slides, Mark only 1, which tells you there was more detail in it. And Luke got to his story in chapter 5, okay, which tells you there's more detail, doesn't it? So one day as Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, which is part of the Sea of Galilee, okay, so Mark, just big picture stuff, Sea of Galilee. This lake was part of the Sea of Galilee. Right there we can see Luke giving that extra precision. Okay? The people were crowding around him and listening to the word of God. He saw at the water's edge 2 boats, left there by the fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from shore. Then he sat down and talked to people from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets." When they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signalled their partners in the other boat to come and help them, and they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. So much more detail, isn't there? When Simon Peter saw this, Simon Peter is Simon. Sometimes in the Bible he's called Simon, sometimes Simon Peter, and sometimes just Peter. And I won't go into that right now. We can leave that for another time. Just take my word on that. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man." For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken. And so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid, from now on you will fish for people." So they pulled their boats on shore, left everything, and followed him. So, let's take a closer look at what we've just read and what it means for us today. Jesus already had a track record, okay? As we already said, he was already going around, teaching well, healing people. You can read that earlier than Luke chapter 5, but in Luke. He already had a track record. Peter, James, John, they would have known about this man for sure. And Jesus went to them. He went to them. Did you notice that? He wasn't in a church building. He went to them. He was preaching on the beach, on the boat. He went where people were. He went into their places. And as a church, we so believe that. You know, we love church. We love gathering together. But we're not just people who want to meet on a Sunday, have a nice old time, and let the world just go on unnoticed that we even exist. That's not what we're about. As a church, we so want to do what Jesus did. He went to them. He went where they were. That's what we're going to do. Jesus knew exactly who he was. Jesus knew who he was. He knew he was the Son of God. He said to those early disciples, those first people who decided to follow Jesus, he said to them, follow me. Not join me, not be part of my team, not come and work with me, but follow me. He's the boss. He's in charge. He's the leader. He does us good when we follow him. He knows that. Jesus isn't afraid to step up and be the leader. That's the role he's been given. He is God in a body. He knew exactly who he was. And Jesus chose a diverse and ordinary bunch of people. So imagine you're the Son of God, right? Just try to imagine that for a moment. And you've been given a mission to come and save this world, to come and transform this world. Now, if I'd been given that mission, I'd be thinking, right, I need the SAS. That's what I need. I need that kind of guy. I need the SAS. Or the A-team, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, like, when I was a kid, I was like watching B.A. Baracus, and they always won, didn't they? They always turned, like, defeat into victory. I was thinking, like, that's what I'll be after. That's what I'm after. At the very least, I'll be thinking, right, I want the big religious leaders of the day. That's what I want on my team, to go and do this great mission. Actually, Jesus didn't pick people like that. He just picked a diverse and ordinary bunch of people. Some of them were richer, some of them were poorer, but none of them were the kind of people that were like celebrities or famous or even particularly brilliant at what they did. He picked fishermen, he picked tax collectors, he picked political activists. That's very topical, isn't it, the election and everything. In fact, the truth is, he picked people like you and people like me. And how did they respond when Jesus said, follow me? Well, they were willing to give him a chance. They were prepared to give Jesus a chance. They were open-minded enough to even consider that he might be worth following. You know, I've got some friends who I love dearly, really, really good friends, but they are just closed to Jesus. It's just a non-starter. They will not even consider evidence. They will not consider reasonable debate. They've just decided that's it. No, it can't be. It just can't be. And if that's you tonight, maybe you're here and maybe you're not a follower of Jesus. Maybe you're not a disciple. What I would say is just be open-minded enough to give Jesus a chance. So Peter was a fisherman. He was an expert in his trade. He'd been fishing all night and caught nothing. And this carpenter called Jesus turns up. Just a carpenter. What did he know about fishing, right? And he says, let down your nets. And Peter's thinking, well, we won't catch anything. I'm the expert. I've had an expert team with me, another team of fishermen with me, who are equally expert. We're not going to catch any fish. We know what we're doing. We've tried all night. None. But they'd heard Jesus speak. They'd heard rumours about what he could do. And Peter says, well, because it's you, I'll do it. Now Peter was, as we read on the story through the Bible, you know, Peter often had big doubts, serious doubts. He wrestled with doubts throughout, even though he was with Jesus for 3 years. You know, in the flesh, he wrestled with him. He wrestled with doubts. So I've got no doubt Peter had doubts, thinking, well, okay, I'll drop my nets. But what's the point? You know, even when we're praying for healing, we can be like that, can't we? Okay, you know, I'll give it a go. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I can't see it somehow. But they were willing. They went, okay, I'll give it a chance. If that's you, I just encourage you and urge you to give Jesus a chance tonight if you never have. And of course, Jesus delivered. Jesus delivered. They had such a catch. It didn't just fill one boat, it filled both of them. So much so that actually the boats were on the verge of sinking. We read that in Luke 5 just there. And Peter's attitude changed. Now he called him master to start with. He had some respect for Jesus. He recognised Jesus was probably a fine teacher, but maybe nothing more. But then he saw firsthand a miracle of Jesus. He saw firsthand, and suddenly Peter's attitude changed. This guy is not just a good man, but he's the God man. He's not just master, but he's a Messiah. Now Peter might not have fully understood everything at that point. I don't think he did, about who Jesus was. But he certainly knew he was more than just a good guy, more than just a good teacher, more than just an inspirational speaker. He knew he was more than that. He knew there was something of God about him. Jesus hadn't changed. As we've already said, Jesus knew he was the Son of God. Jesus has always been the Son of God. But Peter changed. Peter realised he was dealing with someone special here. And he knew he was worth following. And so that's what they did. They were obedient. They were obedient. Now listen, if I just read Mark's version to you tonight, basically Jesus turns up, sees three fishermen and says, "Follow me," and they say yes. I wouldn't do that. We know that's not real actually. We know there was much more to than that because we've read Luke's version. And we bang on about Jesus a lot. As soon as I've already said that, we do. But not for no reason. And we're not asking anyone to be obedient, to make that life-changing choice based on nothing. Some people have their own miracles in their lives, and nothing can persuade, no one can persuade that person it wasn't a miracle. And Peter had that experience. Other people could have said to Peter, well, he was just lucky. There just happened to be a huge shoal of fish going past at that point. Maybe Jesus saw the fish and took his chance. Peter knew that what he'd seen was a miracle. That this wasn't just the master, this was the Messiah. There's things happen in my life and people can try and write them off as coincidence or chance or whatever. But actually there's things in my life that I know were only God. And we're a church that wants to have lots of only God moments. Only God could have done that. We base our lives on this. So we're not asking you, if you're not a follower, to be a follower based on nothing. There's good evidence. Listen, I just want to give a plug for something called the Alpha Course. We're starting an Alpha Course in July. We're not doing it in June because I think most of us are having a holiday at some point. But in July we're going to run an Alpha Course. It's going to be about 10 weeks. Very informal, very friendly. Probably the week chief, which is always a great place to have a pint as well. There's a few talks about some of the evidences of Jesus, who he is, can you trust the Bible, what about suffering, you can ask all these big questions, and it's just an opportunity to explore the reason that we follow Jesus, the reason that we have faith. We don't have a blind faith, we've studied the evidence, we've experienced his power, and we've chosen to follow him. And the disciples, not just those early three, but all disciples who follow him, went on to have an adventure of a lifetime. That's the good bit. Woohoo! Adventure of a lifetime. They were with Jesus when he healed people. They were with Jesus when he literally raised people from the dead. And then after he'd ascended and gone to heaven, they did those things themselves. They prayed for people and saw them healed. Some of them raised people from the dead. Now that's an adventure of a lifetime, isn't it? Who does that? I mean, what did you do at the weekend? I went to football and raised someone from the dead. I can't wait to be able to say that to someone. I have prayed for people and seen them healed. I've not yet raised someone from the dead. But then here's the news. There's a cost. You count the cost. Those other disciples, they gave up their permanent homes. Wow, really? Wow. They gave up secure jobs. I mean, the second two, James and John, their father owned the business. They would have inherited that fishing business. They had hired hands. It told us in the account. They were relatively wealthy guys. They gave that up and they followed Jesus. They were laughed at. They were beaten. When you become a Christian, you might get laughed at. That's just the reality. I've been sat in a staff room where I used to work in a school, and we were talking about God and Jesus, and just like you do sometimes. And they were like, but you don't really believe it, Alan. You don't really believe Jonah and the whale. You don't really believe Noah built an ark. That's just what we tell the kids in assembly. You don't really believe it though. And I'm like, I really believe it. I really believe it. I've staked my life on it. And they just couldn't get it. And some of them just, laughed. When I was sat there, you count the cost. But some people have a bigger cost. Of 12 of the original disciples, historians think that 11 of them were killed for their faith. I mean, wow. That sounds like a big cost. Were killed for their faith. We think the only one who lived to a ripe old age and died in old age was a guy called John, who actually wrote the last book of the Bible. I guess he had to. But 11 of the 12 early disciples, we think, were killed for their faith. And we might think that will never happen in Britain, but actually we don't know that. We don't know that. Okay? Now that's a scary thought. It sounds like I'm trying to put you off, doesn't it? Listen, the cost is worth it. If you're willing to pay the cost, if you're willing to count that cost of what it can mean to be a Christian, even to death, who knows? Who knows? If you're willing to count that cost, you will have the adventure of a lifetime. I've lived half my life as a Christian, and I lived the half before that not as a Christian. And I tell you what, I ain't never going back. And there's been some costs we've had to count, but it's been worth everything. Every penny, every difficulty, everything. And I just wonder right now, what cost is Jesus calling you to count tonight? Is there something he's asking you to give up? Is there something he's asking you to do for him that will mean giving up some stuff? Is there some comforts he wants you to lay aside? Is there some TV program? It sounds trivial, doesn't it? Is there some TV program he wants you just to give up on, so you can be with us, so you can be a life group, so you can do some of the things he's asked you to do? And maybe even a bigger cost. Who knows? But you will have the adventure of a lifetime. And what about today? Is Jesus still calling people to him? Is Jesus still calling people to him today? I'm going to tell you a quick story. Tony and I have had a family friend for, 16 or 17 years. And I'm just going to call him Bob, because that's a great name. Not his real name, but Bob's a great name. And he definitely was not a follower of Jesus. Definitely not. In fact, yesterday morning, he still wasn't a follower of Jesus. He texted me yesterday morning, Facebook messaged, and said, Alan, how do you know there's a God and why do you believe in him? So I basically told him very quickly on Messenger, this is Jesus going to people where they're at. This didn't happen in a church building. This didn't happen at a Christian conference. This didn't happen in a special prayer meeting. This happened on Facebook Messenger. He started the conversation. Jesus is calling people to him. And he said, and I told him why I believed in God. I said, I've studied the evidence. It sounded reasonable to me. And then I met with his power. I met with the risen Jesus' power. And you might be thinking, how the heck do you do that? Well, you can find out if you want to. Come on, Alpha, or ask me tonight. Or we're going to pray in a minute. You can have to find out then. And basically, I told him about my story. And I said to him, would you like to have that power in your life? Would you like to have Jesus in your life? This is a young man, about 23. We've known him since he was a kid, like this big, literally. And he went, yeah, I'd like to do that, but I don't know how. I said, it's dead simple. So I sent him a little prayer. And I said, you'll feel stupid, Bob. You'll feel stupid praying it, because I felt stupid doing it back in 20 years ago. But don't worry. Don't worry. Find a place, a quiet place where you won't be disturbed, and say it out loud if you can. I think it just shows some seriousness. He messaged me back 10 minutes later. I've done it. I've prayed that prayer. He messaged me. I've prayed that prayer. I'm like, Bob, do you want to call yourself a follower of Jesus? Are you a Christian? He went, yes. I'm now a follower of Jesus and I'm a Christian. This happened over Facebook Messenger. That's Jesus going to people where they are. He's not come to church yet. He's not prayed a prayer yet, apart from that one. He's not read one page of the Bible yet. He's not met another Christian in his life yet, apart from us two. But he's made that choice to follow Jesus, and we're going to help him do it. And Jesus does a lot of his work through us. So yeah, Jesus was calling Bob. I've got no doubt about that. Why would Bob suddenly text me on a Saturday, cup final day? I mean, why isn't he watching the football? And, why wasn't I? I was trying to. But why did he text me on a Saturday? I don't know. Other than Jesus is still calling people today, like he called those fishermen and those tax collectors and those political activists years ago. there's something often in it for us to do. There's something in it for us to do. And I just told him about Jesus. I told him that I'd heard enough to be persuaded by him, and I told him that I'd seen his power at work. And the lovely thing was, the compliment was, he said he'd seen that in us. He'd seen that change in us since we've become Christians and so on. So listen, never mind what about today. What about you? What about you? If you are already a follower of Jesus, what's he saying to you? I'm just going to close my eyes. Why don't we all just close our eyes if you want to? This is just you and God now. No one else is watching, no one else is part of this conversation really. This is just you and God. If you are already a follower of Jesus, I just ask you that even now, and through this week, you ask Jesus in your prayers, what do you want me to do this week? What do you want me to do this month, this year, with my life? I want my life to count. I don't want to get to the end of my life and say, I watched a lot of Britain's Got Talent and nothing else. Now, I love Britain's Got Talent, but I want to do more than that. I want my life to count. And I urge you to ask Jesus even now, and to let him speak to you. What do you want me to do this week? Even if there's a cost, I promise and guarantee you it will be worth it. You will do amazing, miraculous things because of him with you. And if you're not someone who would call yourself a follower of Jesus, if that's not you, but you just sense and feel, sense is probably the better word, that he's calling you tonight. Jesus calls people today in Darlington. If he's just calling you, I'm just going to give you the opportunity to respond to that. And I'm not going to make it embarrassing or difficult. And I do just ask again now, we've all just got our eyes closed, and I'm just going to count to 3. A very simple 1, 2, 3. And on 3, if you could just raise your hand, and I will just open my eyes and check who that is. There might be more than one. And then I can just catch you at the end. I'll do it kind of secretly to not embarrass anyone, and we can help you on that journey. So if you just feel that tug of Jesus tonight, if you want to become a follower tonight, on 3, just raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Well done. I know that's really